Hey gang, welcome back to Jade's Garage. Today's video is going to be a continuation of the previous video where I sprayed the underside of the hood and the deck lid for the 68 Mustang known as Jade. If you like videos like this, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to see more. Okay, so in the last video, I sprayed the underside of the hood and the deck lid and then some smaller pieces like these inserts that go into the hood. They turned out really nice. Color's consistent, clear coat's nice, and I need to do the top side. Now, I did get overspray on here, so I'll have to sand that down slightly, smooth it out, you know, and respray these, and I'll try to mask off the back side so that I don't get overspray there. It's kind of tricky when you have a piece like this. Now, it might have been easier if it was, you know, let's say hanging by a single bolt. You know, if I put a couple of bolts in this thing and hung it, but I want it to lay flat. I want it to lay as if the paint is sprayed on it, you know, because the hood is going to get sprayed in the same pattern. You don't want to stand the hood up. You want to keep everything flat, so that's why I'm doing it this way. Okay, what I want to do is sand down the deck lid and the hood, and of course these other pieces, and prep them for the next round of paint. So these have been sitting for about a week now, really, and they're nice and cured, no problem there. I'm going to go over this, and this is some older paper that I had. This is some Mirka 400, and what I want to do is use that on my DA, and all I'm trying to do is smooth it out. If there's any kind of high spots, you know, I'm not going to go to the edge, stay off the edge. I can come around the radius of the trunk lid, you know, curve a little bit. I'm going to stay out of any kind of corners or dips or anything like that, so that, you know, you don't eat into that edge. And then I'll probably, well, I do plan to wet sand these with at least 600 and make sure everything is prepped and ready to go. So that's where I'm at right now, and that's what I'm going to work on. Okay, you see me running my hand over this and then pausing every so often. I know it's hard to see, but it's easier to feel. There's texture right here. And it's hard to explain. I mean, I could probably put some, the Mirka blocking the dry coat or guide coat on, and it would show up. But I can feel it with my hands because everything else is really smooth until I get right there. Let me see if I can get some guide coat on there, see what that looks like. Okay, I put some guide coat on. You can probably just see hopefully see little pock marks right in that area. So I'll go over that with the DA and see if I can't reveal those a little bit more. Okay, I went over it with the DA. Now I can't tell how good it is in the camera, but I can definitely see those little pock marks now. And that's what I'm trying to get rid of. So over here, don't mind my hand getting on the way, but this is all smooth right here. But over here, that's where they're at. So a little more work and get those out. Okay, all gone. Very nice. So I'll go over this deck lid, make sure there's none of those little spots. I'll go over the hood, and then I'll come back and do 600 as a final prep. Again, using caution around, you know, any of these transition points. You want to make sure you don't dig in and cause a problem. Okay, so I'm getting ready to sand this with 600. Again, this is overkill. You don't need to do this, but I'm doing this for me. And what I'm using is 600 wet dry paper from 3M. Turn that around. I have a bucket of water, and in the water is just a few drops of dishwashing liquid, and that helps the sanding process, and it helps keep the paper from clogging up. And also I am using this little Meguiar's. It's a softer pad. It's not as hard as the Durablocks. And I'm not trying to go crazy with this. All I want to do is go over it and make sure everything is smooth. So get some water on here. And it's just barely removing any material. Okay, so I've gone over most of it, or well, all of it really. And now what I'm going to do is just take a clean t-shirt and wipe this off. Did you get the rest of it? And this will also give you a chance to look it over and maybe even feel the surface, with the rag on your hand, just in case there's something you missed. But of course, this will get wiped down prior to spray. Let that dry a minute, and then you can see just how, maybe see the reflection from the lights, if that has changed any. Now I'll do the same to the hood, and then of course, again, everything will get wiped down and prepped, and then, ready for spray. The only thing I'll point out, and I see this just as an observation, because I want you to know, it's a little thin right here. I can just see a little bit of color. So what I'll do with that is take a can of gray self-etch and just, you can use other primers, but just real quick to address that. Now the truth is, the chrome is going to sit right there anyway, the trim, so it'll probably hide that, but it doesn't hurt to just touch it up. And especially, any areas on top where you can see a dark spot coming through, because with this paint it's kind of translucent in a way, and so that will show up, but you can barely hear that. I'm also going to wet sand the inserts. You can see I do have some overspray on these. It's not going to really hurt it because it's going to get more color on top of it, but just doing this with a 600 will tone that down and take away that edge for sure, because it had look like a bit of an edge there where it was sitting on the piece of wood that I used. Now I'll come around the edge just a little bit, because when I tape this, I'm going to back tape it like I did the hood and the deck lid before, so that the tape is kind of falling away from it. Okay, that's where I stop. Okay, everything is sanded, wiped down, and ready for base coat. So I'm just doing the hood and the deck lid, and you can see that I have back masked both panels so that hopefully nothing goes to the back side. And also I had masked off the openings here again so that fluid or paint doesn't flow backwards up under the hood. And then I also masked off these two pieces, and I put masking in the back of those vents. Hopefully that'll go smooth. Now, one thing I do want to point out, in the previous video where I'd sprayed this, a comment was made that I had too much pressure on the gun. And looking up some paperwork, I realized that's correct. One of the issues I had was I didn't have a regulator out here on my main feed. So I've added a simple regulator to drop the pressure down. This is currently at about 60 pounds, and that's going to make it easier for me to regulate at the gun, which, as I've looked through the paperwork a little more, the gun pressure should be at about 35 pounds is what I'm reading. So that's what I'm going to set the gun to. So let me get some paint mixed up. I'm not going to go through that because I've shown that before, but I'm going to mix up some paint and come out here and start spraying. Another thing I want to point out, I talked about before where I added some vents at the bottom of my wall opening between the two parts of the shop. So there's one there and one over there. That one, the filter's not set up straight yet, but I'm experimenting. I have March Indy actually had stopped by my shop and dropped off a couple of fans. So what I want to do is I'm going to have a fan on the back side of that filter blowing air into the shop, along with the fans pulling air out at the windows. And that's all I'm doing right there. Just have the fan blowing towards the vent or the opening just to get a little airflow going into the booth. Okay, this is basically 3 coats of base, and I'm pretty happy with it. I will say, you know, maybe today wasn't the best day to spray this because of the temperatures, but you know, it is what it is. At this point, the color looks good. The only thing I know, and it'll bother me more than anybody else, is there's a couple little nibs, you know, in various places. You can kind of see them, and I'm not going to sand those out. A little squiggly thing right there. I'm not going to sand that out. I'm going to clear coat it and go with it, you know. Today was maybe not the best day to do this, but I got to get it done. And then over here on these little inserts, after the first round of base, I had a little bug fell into it right about there. Nope, there, over there. And I had to pick it out. And I fogged it back over with base, and I think it hit it okay. But you know, this isn't a professional paint booth. This is just a home-built paint booth, so that's all I can do. So, color, clear coat, looks pretty good. I did end up with, you know, dust nibs in the clear coat, so I'm disappointed with that. As I look it over, I realize it's most all this is going to sand out. I think it'll all sand out, honestly. But just surprising. And I think a lot of that had to do with that little air filter I had over there, and I had the fan blowing behind it. I honestly think that's what released this stuff and got onto the clear coat. But, you know, you live and learn, and hopefully it helps you out whenever you're working on your project. Well, you live and learn. Maybe I made a few mistakes with the, you know, the filter and stuff like that, experimenting, but how else are you gonna know, you know? I think I may change up things when I go to paint the car itself and try to avoid having that extra stuff show up in the clear coat. But I think it'll stand out just fine, and you know, I hope you learned something from this video. Moving forward, I wanna thank my patrons who have supported me, you know, over the last year, and I appreciate them very much. If you're interested in becoming a patron to the channel, there are links down below. And I think in the next segment, I will be trying to get the car, you know, ready for paint. So look forward to doing that. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See you.